10.2, Councillor Collins, access traffic lanes.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I would move to, it is a notice of motion, so I'd move to waive the rules. It's asking for a report.
Seconded by McCaddy. All in favor?
And if I could just speak to it very briefly, as I said during the Cannon Street bicycle lane debate, I think we all became very aware of the fact that we have excess capacity on Cannon Street. And one of the discussions I had last year with Mr. Moore, who's here today with us, was around the Burlington Street area. As you know, we have Burlington Street has lanes on the bottom. We also have a deck structure on top. And the question that I had asked at the time was, what's the plan for Burlington Street, knowing that we certainly do not have the industrial base that we had 20 or 30 years ago, and there's far less traffic on that route. And in discussions with Gary mentioned that, in fact, you know, we internally have a decision to make, as I understand it, at least on one section of Burlington Street, around the Wilcox Gate area, where that area of Burlington, at least right now, is under investigation as to whether we're going to rebuild it or whether we're going to tear it down. And Gary mentioned this morning that the cost of replacing just that portion of the deck is around $5 million. And so that, I think, highlights the fact that we have, in some cases, an outdated transportation network that was built at a time when transportation patterns were a lot different than they are today. So I use that as the example of an opportunity that might, where we might achieve some savings. And I know that maybe I can ask Mr. Moore before I go on. The timing of that Burlington Street situation, I had looked for it in the capital budget book, but it's not in there. And maybe Gary can shed some light on that situation as an example of what's out there in the municipality as it relates to our maintenance.
Mr. Chair, we're looking at that area right now for some time in the next 2 to 3 years that we need to make a decision on whether we're going to proceed with the bridge repairs or in fact remove that bridge and reconfigure the other area.
So that's probably one of the most costly examples that we could look at or use as an example. But others were raised in the past. As you know, we've talked about Wentworth, Wellington, Cannon Street certainly has been talked about, and there are others. We lost a lane coming down the escarpment from the slide, the escarpment slide a failure that we had a couple years ago. We've lived without that lane, and we've incurred some savings from that. We do have per kilometer costs that we incur every year to maintain these streets. And so by taking some of these lanes out of circulation, this isn't about trying to create congestion. It's looking for areas where we're maintaining streets that essentially aren't being used. I'd hesitate to guess what they are, and that's why this report is asking staff to come back with examples that would include that Burlington Street situation that Gary's referenced, that might help us, not just from an operating budget perspective, but from a capital budget perspective. And I'm hoping that that information can come back to Council in time for the 2015 budget process.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. So that was moved by yourself and seconded by Councillor Ferguson. All in favor? Carried.